I've been driving trucks for over a decade, and I've spent enough nights on lonely highways to know what normal sounds like. This wasn't normal. A few years ago, I was hauling a load through a remote stretch of highway in western Texas. It was close to 2 a.m., and I hadn't seen another vehicle in nearly half an hour. Out of nowhere, my truck lost power. The engine sputtered once, then died completely. I managed to coast onto the shoulder. At first, I figured it was a mechanical issue. Annoying, but not unusual. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed out to take a look. The highway was completely deserted. No headlights, no houses, nothing but darkness and miles of open land. As I walked toward the front of the truck, I heard something that immediately made me stop. Children laughing. I remember freezing in place. At first, I thought I had imagined it. Then I heard it again. Several children laughing and shouting as if they were playing a game. The sound was coming from somewhere beyond a patch of brush about 50 yards from the road. I stood there listening. The voices sounded happy, carefree, like kids running around at a playground during the day. Except it was the middle of the night, and there was absolutely nothing out there. I slowly shined my flashlight toward the bushes. The beam wasn't strong enough to reach very far, but I could make out movement. Small figures, running between the brush. More than one, maybe 4 or 5. I couldn't tell exactly. For a few seconds, I just stood there staring. My brain was trying to come up with a logical explanation. Maybe there was a campsite nearby. Maybe a family had stopped somewhere off the road. But the longer I listened, the less sense it made. There were no adults, no vehicles, no lights. Just children laughing in the darkness. Then one of the figures stepped into a small clearing. Even from that distance, I could tell it was a child. The figure stood completely still, facing me. The laughter stopped. Every voice went silent at the exact same moment. That's when I got back into my truck. I don't mind admitting it. I was terrified. I turned the key one more time. The engine started immediately, like nothing had ever been wrong. I pulled back onto the highway and didn't stop driving until I reached a gas station about 20 miles away. The place was open all night. A couple of truckers were inside drinking coffee. I ended up telling the clerk what had happened. The whole time I was talking, he just listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked me one question. "Did you hear children laughing?" The moment he said that, I felt a knot form in my stomach. I asked him how he knew. The clerk looked toward the highway outside. Then he told me a story. More than 20 years earlier, a Suburban carrying several children had lost control during a storm on that same stretch of road. The vehicle rolled multiple times before coming to rest in a ditch. Most of the children died at the scene. According to the reports, rescuers could hear crying and children's voices when they first arrived. The clerk told me that over the years, travelers had reported hearing children laughing near the crash site. Some claimed they had even seen them running between the bushes. Nobody could ever explain it. I sat there in silence for a moment. Then I asked him exactly where the accident had happened. He pointed toward the highway. "The area you just described." I didn't know what to say. Before I left, the clerk added one more thing. He said most people only hear the voices. Very few actually see the children. I asked him why. The man shrugged. "I don't know." Then he looked directly at me. "But everyone who sees them says the same thing." I felt a chill run through me. "What?" The clerk took a slow breath. "They always stop laughing when they notice you're looking back." I've been driving trucks for a little over 12 years, and out of everything I've seen on the road, this is the one story I still can't explain. This happened in late October of 2021 during a run through Montana. I was hauling construction materials to a job site outside Billings. It was one of those long, overnight drives where the road feels completely disconnected from the rest of the world. No traffic, no towns, just darkness and empty highway stretching for miles. It was around 2:30 in the morning when I noticed lights up ahead. At first, I thought it was a rest area or maybe road construction, but as I got closer, I realized it was a way station. That immediately caught my attention because I knew that station had been closed for months. I had passed it several times earlier that year, and there were signs saying it was shut down for repairs. Still, the place looked fully operational. The parking lot was brightly lit. Electronic signs were glowing. Orange traffic cones guided vehicles toward the entrance. Most importantly, a large electronic message board displayed a simple instruction: all trucks must enter. I remember feeling confused more than anything else. Maybe they had finally reopened it. Maybe the repairs were finished. I slowed down and followed the cones into the station. The moment I pulled in, something felt wrong. The first thing I noticed was the silence. There were no official vehicles anywhere. No police cruisers, no Department of Transportation trucks, no employees walking around. Nothing. The entire facility looked active, but there wasn't a single sign of normal operations. Then I saw a man standing near the scale. He was wearing a reflective safety vest and waving me forward. At first glance, he looked like any highway worker. As I got closer, though, I realized he wasn't carrying a radio. He didn't have a badge. He didn't have any identification visible at all. I rolled down my window and stopped beside him. The man stepped closer. I expected him to tell me where to park or ask for paperwork. Instead, he simply stared at me. He didn't say a word. Not one. After several seconds, he slowly raised his arm and pointed toward the administrative building at the far end of the station. That was it. No explanation, no instructions, just pointing. I remember feeling a knot form in my stomach. Something about the entire situation felt off. I looked past him toward the parking area and noticed several trucks lined up in a row. At least 5 of them. Every engine was off. Every cab was dark. None of the drivers appeared to be inside. I was trying to figure out what was going on when movement caught my eye. One of the trucks was parked near the edge of the lot. At first, I thought it was a reflection. Then I saw it again. Someone was inside the cab. A person was pressed against the passenger side window. They were moving frantically, waving their arms, trying to get my attention. For a moment, I honestly thought they were trapped. The person looked terrified. I stared for a few seconds, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then I noticed the man in the reflective vest looking directly at me. He knew I had seen it. His expression changed immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't a friendly smile. It wasn't even a normal smile. It looked forced, like someone pretending to be human. Without taking his eyes off me, he started walking toward the truck with the person inside. That's when every alarm bell in my head went off. I threw the truck into gear and hit the accelerator. I didn't care if I was supposed to be there or not. I just wanted out. As my truck picked up speed, I glanced in the side mirror. What I saw made my blood run cold. Several figures were emerging from behind the buildings. I don't know exactly how many. Maybe 6, maybe 8. They were moving quickly toward the roadway. Toward me. The man in the vest was running too. I drove straight through the exit and back onto the highway. I kept accelerating until the station disappeared behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. A few minutes later, I called 911. I explained everything as clearly as I could. The lights, the trucks, the people, the person trapped inside the cab. The dispatcher listened carefully before asking where it happened. I gave her the highway number and the name of the way station. There was a long pause. Finally, she spoke. "Sir, are you sure that's the correct location?" I told her I was positive. Another pause followed. Then she said something that immediately made my stomach drop. "That station has been closed for over a year." I thought she had misunderstood me. I explained that the lights were on and there were people everywhere. The dispatcher assured me officers would check the area. About 40 minutes later, I received a call back from a state trooper. According to him, they searched the entire property. The station was dark, completely abandoned. There were no lights, no trucks, no workers, no signs that anyone had been there recently. The gates were locked. The buildings were empty. The trooper suggested I might have accidentally entered a different facility. I knew that wasn't possible. I had driven that route dozens of times. I knew exactly where I had been. The officer took my statement anyway, and that was the last I heard about it. For a while, I convinced myself there had to be some logical explanation. Maybe it was a criminal operation using the property temporarily. Maybe the police arrived after everyone left. Maybe I had misunderstood what I saw. Then something happened 2 weeks later. I stopped at a truck stop outside Bozeman to grab coffee and stretch my legs. Near the entrance was a bulletin board covered with flyers. Most truck stops have them. Advertisements, local notices, missing person posters. One of those posters caught my attention immediately. I froze. The face on the flyer looked familiar, very familiar. I walked closer. The longer I stared, the more certain I became. It was the same person I had seen inside that truck. The same face pressed against the window. The same person trying desperately to get my attention. According to the poster, they had been missing for 8 months. I stood there for several minutes reading every detail. I even took a picture of the flyer. Later that day, I called the number listed on it. I told them what I had seen. The person on the other end listened politely, thanked me, and took down my information. I never heard back. No one ever contacted me again. To this day, I have no idea what happened at that way station. I don't know who those people were. I don't know why someone appeared to be trapped inside that truck. And I don't know why the face on that missing person poster matched the person I saw that night. What I do know is this. For the rest of my career, every time I passed an empty way station after midnight, I checked twice to make sure it was really abandoned before I got anywhere near it. I've been driving trucks for almost 16 years now, and I've had my fair share of strange experiences on the road. Most of them have reasonable explanations. This one doesn't. It happened in the summer of 2022, during a run that took me through Colorado, Wyoming, and into Nebraska. Nothing about the load was unusual. It was a routine delivery, and I expected it to be one of those trips I'd completely forget about a week later. The first night, I stopped at a rest area outside Cheyenne. I ate a sandwich in the cab, checked my route for the next morning, pulled the curtains shut, and went to sleep. The next morning, something felt off. My driver's logbook was sitting open on the dashboard. I specifically remembered putting it away before going to bed. At first, I figured I was just tired and forgot. Truckers spend enough time on the road to know that exhaustion can mess with your memory. I didn't think much of it. I closed the logbook and got back on the highway. The second night, I parked at another rest area a few hundred miles away. When I woke up the next morning, there was a bottle of water sitting in my cup holder. It wasn't mine. I know that sounds stupid, but when you live in a truck for days at a time, you know exactly what's yours and what isn't. I had never seen that brand before. I looked around the cab trying to make sense of it. Nothing else seemed out of place. I eventually convinced myself that maybe I bought it somewhere and forgot about it. That explanation didn't sit right with me, but it was better than the alternative. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The logbook, the bottle, neither made any sense. By the third night, I was starting to feel genuinely uneasy. I parked at a truck stop outside North Platte and tried to get some sleep. Sometime during the night, I woke up suddenly. I don't know what time it was. I don't know what woke me. The inside of the cab was completely dark. For a few seconds, I just lay there staring into the darkness. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not loud, not heavy, just slow, steady breathing. And it wasn't mine. It sounded like it was coming from the front of the cab. I froze. I remember holding my breath so I could listen better. The sound continued. Slow, calm, like someone sitting there, waiting. I reached for my flashlight and yanked the sleeper curtain aside. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat was empty. The doors were locked. There was nobody there. I searched every inch of that truck. Nothing. I barely slept for the rest of the night. The next morning, I drove to a truck stop and bought a small dash camera. If someone was messing with me, I wanted proof. I mounted it inside the cab, facing the seats and sleeper area. That night I parked at a busy travel center because I figured there would be security cameras and plenty of people around. I checked the doors 3 separate times before going to sleep. Both were locked. I remember that clearly. The following morning I grabbed some coffee and sat down to watch the footage. At first, everything looked normal. I climbed into the sleeper around midnight. Nothing happened for nearly 2 hours. Then, at 2:17 a.m., the passenger side door opened. I nearly dropped my coffee. The door didn't fly open. It opened slowly, like someone was trying not to make any noise. A man climbed into the cab. He was thin, wearing dark clothes. His face looked pale under the parking lot lights. I watched him sit down in the passenger seat. He didn't touch anything. He didn't steal anything. He just sat there, watching me sleep, minute after minute. I remember feeling sick to my stomach as I watched. The footage showed him sitting completely still for almost 10 minutes. Then he stood up, slowly. He leaned over the sleeper, closer, closer, until his face was only inches from mine. I was asleep in the video, completely unaware. The man stared at me for several seconds. Then he smiled. Not a normal smile. Not the kind people give when they're happy. It looked wrong, like he was amused by something only he understood. A few moments later, he climbed out of the truck and disappeared. I immediately took the footage to the police. The officers were just as disturbed as I was. One of them actually watched the video twice because he thought he had missed something. The problem was that none of it made sense. The truck stop security cameras never captured anyone approaching my truck. Nobody appeared entering the parking lot. Nobody appeared leaving. It was as if the guy had simply appeared beside my cab and vanished the same way. For the next few weeks, detectives kept contacting me. They asked questions about where I'd been and whether I recognized the man. I didn't. Then one afternoon, I received a call from one of the investigators. His tone was different, quiet, almost nervous. He told me they thought they had identified the person from the footage. Apparently, the man had been arrested multiple times over the years for breaking into vehicles while people slept. He never stole anything. He never assaulted anyone. He would just sit there and watch. The detective said the behavior was so unusual that several officers remembered him immediately. I asked for his name. There was a long pause. Then the detective told me something I'll never forget. The man had been declared dead nearly 3 years earlier. His body was recovered after a winter storm in Wyoming. Dental records confirmed the identification. There was no doubt about it. I remember sitting there with the phone pressed against my ear, waiting for him to laugh and tell me it was some kind of mistake. He never did. To this day, I still have a copy of that footage stored away. I've watched it exactly once since then. Never again. Because every time I think about it, I remember one detail that bothered me more than anything else. The man never looked at the camera. Not once. The entire time he was inside my truck, he only looked at me. Like the camera wasn't what interested him, like he already knew it was there. And somehow, that scares me more now than it did the night it happened.